Hello everybody, welcome back to Worship Warrior Lifestyles YouTube channel. I feel like it's been a minute. Don't mind the noises in the background. There's a crazy dog upstairs. There's a snotty-nosed baby right here playing with toys. But we're gonna keep trucking along here. Today we're going to continue our series, Self-Help from a Biblical Perspective series, and today's topic is going to be about self-discipline. So if you guys haven't seen our other videos, I have a playlist for this series. You can just go down to the description below, click on the link for the playlist, and go watch the others if you haven't yet. Alright, so we're just going to dive right in today. So last week, or 2 weeks ago, I guess, we talked about self-reflection and how important that was as a Christian. Well, today we're going to talk about self-discipline, which I believe really starts coming after you have self-reflection. And you should still continue to have that self-reflection throughout your whole entire life here on earth. It's very important for your relationship with God. But self-discipline is just as important as self-reflection. It is vital to have self-discipline in order to put away the rest of the world and actually live for God. We're going to talk about that. So first of all, what is self-discipline? I have a couple definitions here. The first one is just from Merriam-Webster.com, and it says correction or regulation of oneself for the sake of improvement. Then the second definition actually came from someone who has a little blog or a website, but I don't really know that this person is a Christian by the sound of some of their things, and you can kind of get a hint of that in their definition, but they still have some really good detail as far as what self-discipline is, just factually what it is. So just hear it out. I'm not saying this is the Bible, but this is overall very factually self-discipline. You just get little hints of focusing on yourself more than God through this, but you'll get what I mean, hopefully. I'll stop rambling about it and just read it to you. Self-discipline is your ability to live in accordance with your higher goals and values, moment after moment, overcoming internal and external obstacles. It is your power to commit to what is meaningful to you, and let that guide the way you think, the choices you make, and the actions you take, until you bring your goal to fruition. I'm going to leave the link down below, but remember, don't go reading all this person's stuff and think that it's all true, because the little bit that I did read, I didn't agree with everything, but he had some good, solid, factual statements about the topics he was putting out there. So I will, for the sake of having my source, like documenting my source, I'll put the link down there. But I don't say that it's all, I agree with it all. Okay, so first of all, here's a fact. Self-discipline is a choice. It does not just happen randomly. Let's jump into why is self-discipline important, and honestly, this point can go with it. Is it biblical? A lot of you who are watching this are more than likely Christians, and you're probably like, well, duh, yeah, it's biblical. But not everyone may realize that self-discipline comes from God and that it is biblical. So we're going to just talk quickly about some of these points. You could always do your own personal, lengthy, in-depth study about self-discipline. I highly suggest you do, obviously, and talk to God about it with your own personal life. So why is it important, and is it biblical? It is godly to have self-discipline, like I said. It does having self-discipline, it does glorify God tremendously. It's one of the biggest things, in my personal opinion, it is one of the biggest things that glorifies God that you can do and have. 1 Corinthians 9:24-27 says, "Don't you realize that in a race, everyone runs, but only one person gets the prize? So run to win. All athletes are disciplined in their training. They do it to win a prize that will fade away, but we do it for an eternal prize. So I run with purpose in every step. I am not just shadow boxing. I discipline my body like an athlete, training it to do what it should. Otherwise, I fear that after preaching to others, I myself might be disqualified." So this is Paul talking to Corinth in a letter. And so he's giving the example of a race. He's running a race for God. And he's saying how he disciplines his body like an athlete, training it to do to do what it should. And he also obviously makes a point. We're not just running a marathon here, a 5K here, just to win a medal or a certificate or whatever it is that you're running for like that. We as Christians are running this race, and the end goal, the prize, is eternal. So it's running the race of growing God's kingdom for the eternal benefits of other souls being saved. We're supposed to be living out the Great Commission. Go, baptize, teach all nations. We are supposed to be growing God's kingdom and growing closer to Him. That way, well, one, He just wants to have a relationship with us. So there's just that point blank. But also along, not just that, but also the closer we are to Him, the stronger we are in our faith. And the stronger each of us is individually in our faith, the harder it is for the devil to knock down God's kingdom. And yes, we know the devil is going to lose in the end, but still, we should still be doing what we are commanded. We still should be obeying God out of love and growing His kingdom, and also making disciples that are strong in their faith. And we should be growing closer to Him and training ourselves spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically, so that we can be strong and stand firm and not be moved. So something to kind of go along with the same picture that Paul is giving us in this verse, or in these verses, is something that I personally, actually, this is perfect timing because God is God and He has the perfect timing. I just recently wrote down in one of my notebooks my whys, my whys for why I want to work out, why even if I didn't work out, but like even just exercising, why to me exercise, moving my body outside of just my normal little mundane daily activities, why it's important to me, and why fueling my body with 80 to 90% healthy food is like super healthy, like God-grown food is important to me, because it is important to me, but I had never actually like pinpointed and written down to a T why. And I wrote several reasons. Like I thought I would maybe have 1 or 2 points, but I had several. And one of them kind of went along with this. And so I want to give you just another little analogy. I have 2 here, but one of them is from me. And it's this. This is not like the big picture of things, but one of the reasons that I personally want to fuel my body with good food and just move my body, be active so that I can, just be active, is so that if I say I'm on a mission trip, or say I'm doing something at our church, or maybe I'm out in the community doing an outreach, something along the lines of specific mission work, where I'm there to do something specifically for God's kingdom. It's not just like I'm not just going to the grocery store and then I minister to someone. This is something specific in the mission field. If you've never been on a mission trip, you may not be aware of this, and it also depends on what type of mission trip you're on, I guess, like where you're going and what, like if you're going with a group and who's in charge and what they've planned. Obviously there's a lot of things, but I've been to Guatemala a few times. And whenever we go there, you do anything and everything that needs to be done. And yes, there's still some structure to it. But if there's one day while we're there that a family comes, or we come across a family or a church or something, and they're in desperate need of, say, I don't know, XYZ, this thing, and it's going to take most of our day, then we just need to drop and go and be able to do that thing, because that's what God is leading us to do. We're there to minister to all people, not just go deliver this stove to these 4 families and then we're done. Like, it doesn't matter if that's all we had planned, or if we had that plus passing out Bibles planned, but nothing else. We still do other stuff. We're there to do missionary work, to grow God's kingdom. And so my body has been pushed to its limits sometimes because, building those stoves, some things are heavy, or doing this or that, and it's not just there. I've done other work outside of Guatemala. I was only there for like 3 years, but sometimes you just drop and go, and I want to physically be capable of just as much as anyone else on my team. Now, obviously, if there's this big macho man who has been doing weightlifting and endurance training for 20 plus years, obviously he's probably going to be stronger than me. But from this point on, I want to train my body so that if I'm in a situation like that, where they need someone who can physically lift something, or can endure longer walks, or who can put up with the heat better and walking for a long time, and they need 1 to 2 people who can do that to go deliver something to a family, or this or that or the other. I want to physically be able to do whatever comes to my plate within reason. And so that is one of the reasons that I want to have self-discipline and training my body for that, for the eternal goals that God has through ministering to others through me. So the next thing I want to say is having God-glorifying self-discipline, because there's a difference between self-discipline of the world and God-glorifying self-discipline. Having God-glorifying self-discipline trains us to be ready for anything that comes our way. So that's just like a conclusion of what I was saying. God gave us a purpose to fulfill the Great Commission. I said this earlier. In order to do this, we must be trained. So if someone's enlisted in the army, if someone's enlisted in just the military in general, do you think that they're just thrown out? And, like, say there's a battle going on somewhere, or just a big civil war, something is going on. Do you think that they're just going to be enlisted and then thrown in there day one? If it's absolutely needed, sure. But they're going to go through some sort of training before they get out there. They're going to go through basic training. They don't just get thrown out into the middle of a battlefield. They are trained rigorously. And after basic, do you think that they just stop getting trained and then they just sit around and twiddle their thumbs until battle comes and then they go to battle but they don't do anything in the meantime? No. They are trained first. That prepares them to go into battle, but then to keep their body capable of doing the things they're going to possibly need to do during whatever is going on in that battle, in that war, to be able to mentally and emotionally, like, they go through training throughout. They go to drill every month, whatever it is. They go through training while they're after basic training. They still go through it. And so they still train their bodies. They keep it disciplined. So it's the same thing for us as Christians. Our basic training doesn't ever end, really. We just keep going through training. And while we're going through training, then God will still put us into situations, because we are constantly in a war already. As soon as you're born, before you were born, you were in a war. A spiritual war between God's kingdom of light, the devil, Satan, Lucifer, his kingdom of darkness. And so you're already in the war. So don't you want to be disciplined and trained in that so that you can combat the enemy? Because, Christian, if you get saved, you have the security of heaven, sure. But are you going to be able to combat the devil immediately? No. You have all the tools at your fingertips now. They are all readily available for you. Without disciplining your body, disciplining your mind, disciplining your emotional health, disciplining your spiritual overall, well, spiritual goes above all of those things, but you know what I mean. Without discipline and structure in that, you're not going to be able to do anything for God's kingdom. Because you're not going to be able to rely on him the way that you should. You're not going to be able to say, devil, go away. Quit tempting me with this. You're not going to be able to say no to things. You're not going to be able to turn away from the devil's ways. You're still going to be living a worldly life. And even though you're going to heaven, you're not going to be able to do anything for God's kingdom. You're not going to grow it. You're not going to be able to go and teach all nations. You're not going to do any of these things. And you're not going to be a strong tree that is planted by the waters that cannot be moved. You're going to be able to be pushed over easily. You're still going to be miserable because you're not actually living for God. You have to train yourself, and you have to allow God to train you through his word and through your actions of pursuing him and obeying him and loving him and talking with him. Galatians 5:22-25 says, "But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Against such things there is no law. And those who belong to Christ Jesus have crucified the flesh with its passions and desires. If we live by the Spirit, let us also keep in step with the Spirit." Okay, a couple points here real quick, and then we're going to move on to the more practical habits of this. In this specific passage, it mentioned self-control. That comes from the fruit of the Spirit. That's what it said. You have the Spirit inside of you once you have the security of God. Like, you are saved, you have the Spirit inside of you. But you still have to put your own selfish desires, bless you. You still have to put away your own selfish desires. You have to still knock your wall of shame, still knock your wall of pride, jealousy, hurt, all of these things that you have just lived with your whole life, anxiety, depression. You have to knock that wall down with God's help, with his strength, and say, okay, God, now what do I replace all this with? Because this is all I know. And so whenever you begin to do those steps, like this fruit of the Spirit, you're gonna start oozing out the fruits of the Holy Spirit. It's so cool because it's not like you are perfect, but it's because God inside of you is perfect. Perfectness is oozing out of you. We still slip up, unfortunately, a lot of the time because we are selfish. But at least, you know, the more you grow closer to God, the closer and closer you are to Him, the more that it's just going to ooze. It's just some people think that word is kind of gross. I love that word when referring to this because it does. It just oozes out of you. It's like every opening of your body, your eyeballs, your mouth, your nose, everything. It's just like God is just ooze. That's the picture. It's just like glory and God and goodness is coming out of you the closer you get to God. That probably sounded gross, but whatever. Somebody can relate to me, maybe. Self-discipline comes from God. You have to have Him. You have to have His strength to keep doing these things. Now, quickly, I want to say there are people who are non-Christians who have good self-discipline because, again, I could do a whole video on this, but I'm not going to right now. There are a lot of practical habits that God brings to the table to help us with self-discipline. And so a lot of these worldly people are doing some of these practical habits, and it helps them tremendously with self-discipline. But in order to really have self-discipline that is God-glorifying, you obviously can't do that without God. And why do you need God-glorifying self-discipline? Because in order to bring more souls to Christ so that they literally don't die and go to hell, you have to have God-glorifying self-discipline. In order to and that's the importance. So, there's a lot of people out here who have these fitness YouTube channels, and they talk about self-discipline with working out or whatnot, XYZ. Those things are great, but what is it doing for you? It's helping you have a better body while you're on earth, and yes, you have healthy habits, but are you going to be saved through that? No, you're still going to die and go to hell. Unless you get saved. And that's the difference. God-glorifying self-discipline saves souls, or it leads people to God who saves their soul. And they won't suffer for all eternity. So, I don't know, just something to think about, I guess. Self-discipline in all areas of our life is beneficial to us spiritually, meaning all other areas of our life, like non-spiritual areas of our life, helps us spiritually with our self-discipline. For example, self-discipline with your studying, if you are in school, with sin cycles, with spending time with God, putting away other idols, meaning, if you watch TV more, you think about whatever show you're watching more than you think about God, that's an idol. Anything that you put before God, or anything that takes up space in your mind more than God does, that's an idol. So putting away those, self-discipline with your health and your fitness, self-discipline with work, keeping your house or your room functional, where you have to declutter it somewhat often or keep it organized. It takes self-discipline to do those things. Maybe you need to get up earlier in the morning because you have stuff going on. Self-discipline with those things. Whatever it is, self-discipline, working on self-discipline in all other areas of your life helps you spiritually tremendously. We're almost done here. Sorry about all the distractions. Once again, hopefully this video goes smoothly when I edit it. The last part of this video is I wanted to tell you some practical habits to help with self-discipline. I reached out to just a few people. I didn't get responses from everybody, but I did from 4 of them out of... Actually, I think I only had 5 people that I asked, and so 4 of them responded. So I'm going to read those in a minute, just some things that help them, or maybe some scripture that helps them for a couple of them, I think. But anyway, and then I was going to tell you about mine, but I'm not going to go into detail about mine because a lot of mine has to do with time management, and our next video is about time management. But time management helps me a lot with my self-discipline in all other areas of my life. There's a lot of little things that help with self-discipline for me personally, but the big things are very practical. And the first one is having my priorities straight, knowing who I am and why. Knowing who you are also, by the way, helps you figure out what your priorities are. So for me personally, first and foremost, I am a child of God. And then next, I am a wife to my husband, Casey. The next thing is I am a mom to my son, Markham. And then, so those in that order. Those 3 things. And then everything else falls under that. And, all of the rest, it could be ministry stuff with the worship or lifestyle stuff. It could be my job being a caregiver for my friend's son full time. It could be a lot of things. Whatever it is for you, if you work outside of the home, or maybe you have a job
that you work from home, or maybe you don't have a job necessarily like those, but you do have other responsibilities that you can put under that, whatever it is. You can line those up how you'd like. I don't have all of every single part of my life lined up. I just have those 3 things, and then I have, I think, 1 or 2 things that go underneath those. And so, having a picture of like who you are, in what order and in what order you are those things, helps you keep your priorities straight. So that's my first practical thing you could do. Then, structure. God designed everything intentionally and with structure. And so that's why we thrive off of structure. We do, like, the best outcome of things comes from us when there is structure in place and we follow that structure. So something to go along with this point that helps me a lot is after I have written down my list or thought of my list of who I am and in what order, like the 3 things I told you earlier plus my other 2 after that, the next thing that helps me after that is having a schedule or rhythm to my home. I work from home and I'm a stay-at-home mom, so that's my other full-time job, plus I'm a wife, and so I'm home a lot. And even though I'm home, it doesn't mean that everything gets done when I would like for it to get done, because I have responsibilities that come before things like housework or even ministry work like this, or XYZ insert thing here. So in order for our house to stay overall organized, overall decluttered, but we're not naturally like that. But we know that whenever there is organization and less clutter and structure to that, then we're going to do a lot better in all other areas of our life, even spiritually, with our self-discipline by pursuing God and all of that. So in order to keep the house in order, we have a schedule. So we have all of our things, responsibilities written down, like all the housework, my ministry work, I have some little side gigs that I do for extra money, those, we have all that written down, and we divvy them out into certain days. So each week, every Monday, we have those exact same things. So this Monday, we have these things that we need to do that day, and then the next Monday, it's the same things. And then the next Monday, it's those same 2, 3, whatever things. Tuesday, we have certain things delegated to Tuesdays. Every Tuesday, we do that. And then Wednesday, same thing, Thursday, and so on and so forth. Now, we are open-handed about it, though, because things happen. God maybe will lead us to go help out a friend to do something or whatever, but that might be on the day that we really need to clean the bathrooms. Okay, don't clean the bathrooms that day if you can't get to it. Just do it the next day if you can. Or at least, when you get home from helping that friend, quickly wipe it down where you get, the surface, just surface clean it really fast. And then maybe next week you can deep clean it, Don't stress about it. I mean, it's just cleaning the bathroom. Does it need to be done? Yeah, it does need to be done. Somewhat often, depending on you and your household. But does it have to be done right then and there? Probably not. I think you're okay, So having a structure or a rhythm, or a schedule or a rhythm to our home helps me a lot with self-discipline, because whenever I have certain time management things in order, I'm able to think clearly, and self-discipline kind of falls along with having that structure. It's hard to explain. Okay, and then the other thing that is really beneficial for me is writing out my whys. I actually kind of have heard this over the years from different people, but wording it that way, like I just did, writing out my whys, I heard that from another YouTuber, and so she was talking specifically about how in order to stay self-disciplined in her fitness life, in her working out and everything, she needs to write out her whys. Why am I doing what I'm doing? Because if I don't have a reason as to why I'm doing it, then I'm not going to be able to sustain then I'm not going to be able to effectively and continuously do these things, because I don't really have a reason. I'm just doing it flippantly. So I have to know why I'm doing it. And so before I start anything now, almost anything, if it's big, I do this. I write down in detail what I'm doing, and I write down my whys. I write down why I'm doing these things. That way, if I'm not motivated to do whatever it is, maybe say one day, then, you know, I know why I need to do it because I wrote it out and I thought it through. That's the main thing. You don't have to write it all out, but think it through and kind of maybe jot down like bullet points. You don't have to write full sentences. Just so you know, that way in that moment when you don't have the motivation, you're like, you know, but I know why I need to do it. So God, give me the strength to do it. And then you do it anyway, and then you find motivation along the way. That is what self-discipline is. And you need to know your why. You need to know why you're doing what you're doing. Okay, so the last thing is I asked a few people some practical habits or just things that help them in general with self-discipline. So I asked 5 people. I got 4 responses, and I'm just going to go ahead and read them here. The first one, she said, I feel like I've really had to grow in self-discipline with my emotions. It is okay to have feelings, but it is not always okay to act on those feelings. A verse I think of is Ephesians 4:26 through 32. And it says, but don't let the passion of your emotions lead you to sin. Don't let anger control you or be fuel for revenge, not for even a day. Such an amazing verse. Watching my facial expressions, the things I let out of my mouth, and my tone. Tone is such a big thing, and I used to think nothing of it, but it matters. Passion and empathy are great gifts, but it does not mean let my rage and anger or depression take over my heart, mind, and mouth. The next person said, I have made a habit of eating less snacks during the day and only eating till I'm full at meals. It has helped my body feel so much better. In class the other day, I heard this saying that I completely agree with, and my boyfriend and I are trying to make it a habit in our relationship too. It applies to situations involving temptation. It is, quote, if you hesitate, you will contemplate, then negotiate, then participate, and then it will devastate, end quote. I hope this answers your question. It did. I guess I only have 3. I asked 4 people, but 3 people responded. Not that it matters, but this person said, well, I tend to get overwhelmed by thinking about big picture things. So when I'm wanting to be more disciplined in something, I try to take it on in smaller, more manageable chunks. I actually think I apply this in a lot of areas of my life. At work, I am really unmotivated when I look at the huge stack of papers I have to grade. But I'll take out a stack of 10 and grade those, and that small accomplishment propels me to keep going. I kind of have to do this same thing with like Bible study / prayer time. It's easy to dwell on the fact that I've missed a few days, but then I just try to remember that I can still do it today. So I hope that helps you guys. Maybe you can relate to those people if you can't relate to me with all of my lists and structure with those. But just a few fresh opinions on that. All right. Well, I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. I hope you don't struggle too much with self-discipline this week, and you guys are always welcome to reach out to me or Anna through our website or our Instagram page. I believe you can do it through there as well, I'm assuming. So go to the descriptions below, or to the description box below, and click on either the website link or the Instagram page, and you can message us through there if you'd like. If you need prayer for self-discipline, maybe some more tips that maybe we or someone else we know can help you with. Or just if you need an accountability partner, we're always there. So have a great weekend. We love you guys. We truly love you guys, and we want what's best for you in Christ. Okay, bye.